Welcome to the Reidsville Chamber of Commerce News and Views. I'm your host, Diane Sawyer, President of the Reidsville Chamber of Commerce. Today we have with us Dawn Charaba, Executive Director of the Reidsville Area Foundation. Welcome to the show, Dawn.
Thank you for having me, Diane.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't believe we've never done this, or
we
if we have.
Never sat down.
Well, I was sitting here thinking, I was like, we've never done this. Yeah. So
Star caught me.
Yeah.
On a day. It got me on the books.
I love it. Well, I'm excited. Interestingly enough, because we've done work together specifically, even though we have had our struggles with, trying to make sure that we were always doing appropriate things. And being a C6 sometimes makes things difficult for us, but we've always been able to partner with the RDC. We've got some stuff coming up with the RDC that I'm really excited about. It always kind of makes sense for us to do that. So, but you're one of our strongest partner organizations that we've done things with, and so it's very exciting. So let's just dive in. Let's talk about the beginning of Reidsville Area Foundation, because I think a lot of people probably just don't understand what the foundation is, who it was created for, where the dollars came from. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Before I go there, I'm going to hit on a quick point, because you said there have been times where we have partnered, but we may not be able to fund you all in some capacity. And I think that's an important point to pull up, that we have bylaws and guidelines like everyone else, and we really try to focus on supporting our whole community. So even if we can't fund you directly, we are a convener, a facilitator, we will be a partner. And that's what I really like about our relationship, that we can do it in that way.
Absolutely. So. And a lot of times it means that we have an idea, we decide we want to partner, and we pull in whatever, means necessary to figure out this idea. And a lot of times it's a wild and crazy one, but it ends up being really successful. So
and those are the best
they are
for our community. So, all right, so a little history trip. Back 22 years ago, Annie Penn was a small independent hospital. There were some transitions happening with Cone, and so Cone partnered with Annie Penn, and Annie Penn became part of the Cone Health System. When that happened, usually there is a trust or an endowment set up for community in that way. So there was a $28 million gift given to the Reidsville community. The endowment was, for a couple years, hosted within the hospital, and it was staff were hospital employees. They focused specifically on hospital projects and programs. Our first director, Craig Cardwell, transitioned the organization to a private foundation. So that means we are standalone, not affiliated with the hospital, but we really focus on education, healthcare, and that's that direct tie, and then community development. So as a private foundation, we have certain IRS laws that we follow, like any business has, and you all have IRS laws that you have to follow. So we are required to give 5% of our endowment annually to community. So that includes our operating cost as well as grants. So our endowment has grown from the 24 million. It has gone up and down, as high as 42 million pre-COVID, as low as 19 back in the 2008, 2009 economic situation, but currently sits around 37 million. And so that has us putting about $2 million into the community every year. We have given out 29 million over our history, and that's over about 1,400 grants. I'd have to look, but that's probably about 400 different community agencies. So not only nonprofits, but government and school system as well. So,
it's amazing. Yeah, in a nutshell. So, it's interesting, because I think one of the biggest things that people don't understand, your service area. Like you've said, there were pieces that led up to, but obviously when it was the Reidsville Area Foundation, a lot of people don't understand that it's, a more countywide, regional foundation and things that impact community development here. So I think Go ahead.
No, I was just, that's a good point. When we first started, the intent was for the Annie Penn service area. And we do focus a lot on the Reidsville community. There are things that we do for Reidsville that we all live in Reidsville. We all work here. And so it does have a sort of different feel, but you are right. 60 to 70% of our grants are countywide. We currently have a grant in every city or town in this community, in Rockingham County. So we have 2/3 of our board members are required to live in the Annie Penn sort of service area, so the Wentworth, Reidsville area. But we have committee members and board members throughout the county, so we make sure we have representation across the board.
Yeah, and so many things have changed. I mean, when I was going to school, it was the Eden City schools, and I was leaving the 4th grade, coming to the 5th grade is the year that we consolidated to the county, the county school system. And so a lot of times things that you do are specific to the school system versus, the individual, even though you've done individual projects and things. So I think that it is so important for people to understand that there are a lot of great people on your board and a lot of great people on your staff, and that you guys are really specific and very intentional in the things that you do. And so I think that is probably coming from a place where I worked in another community where there was a community foundation, actually multiple community foundations, and seeing that, we operate much like they do, and it makes sense. So I'm just thankful, because there have been things that have happened that wouldn't have happened without you all and without the money that was able to be invested back into the community. So let's talk about some of those specific things.
Okay.
What are maybe some of the most favorite things or the most successful things in your time so far?
So I'll give you a little overview of our sort of grant types, and that may help, because a lot of people don't even understand how that process works. So I'll start with what I can do as the ED. So I'm given a small pot of money where I can grant out small projects, so up to $2,500 of like a pilot program or a startup. Or one of the things, the example is the Junior Police Academy with Reidsville. And so we help fund the new startup. So this has happened for a long time, but they took a break, and Sergeant Carter wanted to start it up. And so we helped fund that alongside several Reidsville community members. I think they have 25 this year. And I don't know if you've seen them around town doing PT. They have gone to a Grasshoppers game. They have met the canines. I mean, so much rich experience and building a relationship with our police department, which is so important. So my pot of money is limited, but it is something that I have discretion, and so it's ED discretionary grants. The next grant, so we currently have 11 board members, and then we have 8 non-board members who serve on our committee. So we know we need a well-rounded perspective, and we can't just do that with our board alone. So our board members and our committee members, they don't get paid, but they earn money that they can grant out, very similar to what I do. So every year they get an amount of money for every meeting that they attend, and they can re-grant that out. So a lot of that goes across the board in our community. Barry Joyce Cancer Center, Reidsville Outreach. We have one board member who lets his kids select where the money goes, and it always goes to the animal shelter. Do you know? So it is money that they have earned and give back to community. Third, we have our capacity building or capacity strengthening grants. So those are for new organizations or organizations that are looking to better their infrastructure. So when we talk about that, it's you need software, you need a computer, you need donor management, you need board professional development. You can apply for a capacity strengthening grant to help build and sustain your organization. Those are usually between $5,000 and $20,000. The next is capital, which is tricky because capital projects are often very complicated, and so we can help organizations, we can match funds, or we can help go towards the cost of a building or equipment or things like that. So capital projects that we've helped with in the past are Market Square, the all-inclusive park, the simulated hospital at RCC, so all across the county, those type of capital infrastructure projects. And finally, we have our focus area grants, so priority area grants around education, healthcare, and community development. And so those go before our board. Our board meets 6 times a year, which is different than most foundations, because most foundations are 1 or 2 times they make decisions on grants. But you may not have a project in December. You may have a project in May or June, and you need, to go ahead and apply. So every other month, our board reviews grant applications. And so all of that is online. So anybody can go online, look at our process, see when the dates are, and apply for grants.
So one of the things that I think that is so awesome is a lot of times when you are doing the funding, I think it's great. I mean, I knew some of the things you just said, but it's almost like I relearned too, thinking about the board members, and I knew that you had like a pot of money. But when you talk about the capacity building, or you talk about the areas of focus, I think that's really helpful for people to understand, because they are looking to, sometimes people don't understand how grants work. They don't understand what they're truly for. They don't understand that a lot of times it's to help get something off the ground until it can get to the place that it's self-sustaining. And so I think that it's helpful for people to understand the how, or the why, or the categories. And you do have a really great explanation on your website, so I always encourage people to look at that. But what do you find to be the trickiest thing about trying to help people understand what the goal is, what the mission is, what you're trying to do, when they don't really see how what they're trying to do doesn't fit?
Like is not a direct fit with us. That's hard, right? Because there's so many organizations and leaders in our community doing great work, and not everyone fits within that scope. And we had a meeting last week with someone who was interested in a grant, but it didn't really quite align with our priority areas. And so we view ourselves not only as people that give out money in our community. That's not what we want you all to see us. We want you to see us as we're in there trying to figure out things with you all, make solutions, serving food at the Reidsville Soup Kitchen last week, just really integral parts of the community. So we try really hard to meet people and understand what their vision is, and everyone has a passion. So many people in our community are excited about projects, are doing hard work to better our community, and we acknowledge that, but we also have to acknowledge we can't fund everything. Or if we could give out our entire endowment right now and not solve all the issues in our community.
Oh, for sure.
And so really thinking about what are upstream approaches. So someone may need, might not be able to solve one specific issue around let's say a soup kitchen, but we can partner with everyone in the food insecurity space to really look at how do we change the food system in our community. So we take time to explain that, to help them connect with resources. And there are other funding agencies, both locally, state, and federal, that they may be able to partner with. And we do our best to connect them.
Absolutely. Well, when you talk about upstream issues, I think one of the big ones that you all have really rallied around, and still, I feel like we were all in the same room, still scratching our heads, still trying to figure out, is the child care crisis.
Yeah.
So that's something that several of us have been working on in multiple different facets for a long time.
We started the Family Forward things with you all, 3 or 4 years ago?
Longer than that, because it's pre-COVID.
And the partnership.
Yeah.
Yes, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, so probably 5 years ago now.
Yeah. And that work is hard.
It's so hard because I don't feel like, in some ways, it's like, are we any further along? But we are,
Yes.
right? Like we
Yes.
have some certified employers, and we have had these sessions and these documentaries and things where there's a lot more awareness that's been created. But man, just getting to the awareness piece has been so difficult.
And you bring up the certified employers piece, and that is something that I want sort of chamber folks to know. If people are interested in that, it is a process that you go through. It is a survey. It is working with the North Carolina Early Childhood Foundation. Reidsville Area Foundation will pay the certification fee for any business, whether it is a nonprofit or for-profit. We will pay NC Early Childhood Foundation directly. So I do encourage people to look into that.
Yeah, like, and for us, you know, it started with, they did a case study on the chamber. I was really proud of
Y'all
that.
are on their
'cause-
webpage, I
Yeah,
think.
we
Yes.
were. I was really proud of that because this board, when I was hired 13 years ago, there had never been a childbearing age female in this position. And so when I came, my oldest was 12 weeks old, but within 2 years, I was having my second child, and then I proceeded to have a third child. So they were like, oh,
What are our policies?
there's nothing in this policy that addresses that. Because typically there was a type for Chamber of Commerce presidents and executive directors, and they were typically older white men. And so that's changed drastically over the last couple of decades. And, you know, they dove in and they were like, hey, let's figure this out. And I was really proud of them coming from the nonprofit world and having worked for another nonprofit that was a startup that came directly under one of those focuses. It was very similar to how we're set up here. You know, I was really proud of them because they really thought outside of the box. It wasn't like, oh, hey, we need to find money in our budget to go pay for these insurance. Like, they decided to self-insure. They decided to model the policy after the larger government policies and the larger, you know, and they were like, why can't we have that? It doesn't matter. We make our own rules, you know. And so it was just a really cool thing to be a part of, and to know that after that, that we were kind of, we had another staff member who had a baby. I had a staff member who had cancer. I had another staff member who had another kind of life-altering surgery. I mean, we've just had multiple things that policy's been used for, and I'm just so proud of that board at that time figuring it out, because it's not easy to make changes, and it's not easy to say, yeah, we're going to support our staff, and this is how. And so there have been all these things, and even more family forward. It's funny that led us to COVID. And having those conversations, they wanted me to be able to work remotely and work from anywhere. And then when the ball dropped and we went, you know, shelter in place and the chamber closed the doors, we were still active. We were still working. And I was able to work from anywhere at any time. I could come and meet people here if I needed to, but I also could just work from home. And all of that came from this forward thinking and this family forward, like, how do we be better employers? How do we support our staff better? And especially, I urge the small nonprofits to really think about looking at their policies, because there are things you can offer that don't cost money. Yeah. Your employees just need to know that they're cared for and their families are cared for, and that whether it be children or whether it be, a lot of times we find people are caring for parents, and it's like the elder situation. And so I just think that the family forward thing has been a really long journey that we are still in, because we just
there.
I mean, we just had, tell us about this, how we came to this session that we just had that we all attended, and again, still scratching our heads in the room and looking at each other and talking about it. And
and I will say, y'all were ahead of the time in changing your policies. And even when we began working with NC Family Forward, we thought we were on top of it, right? That we were progressive in our policies. And then when we sat down, we're like, we have some things that are missing here. And so our board, like yours, spent a lot of time talking and assessing and really saying, how do we best support our employees? Because if our employees feel safe and valued their families thrive because they have that security. And research shows that when family policies are in place, those families are thriving and kids are also getting what they need. And so that is so important. We rewrote all of our policies as well. We had a discussion, we had maternity leave, but we didn't have paternity leave in there. And then we did not have elder care, and we had a debate of, if you adopt a child, what does that look like? So really thinking through, how do we best support every family in any situation? And
well, what's great is that you're the go-to resource. So by doing that, even though you're most likely always going to be a small nonprofit with a smaller staff, even if it were to grow, it's, you're never probably going to be more than 25 employees. You're always going to fit into that 1 to 25 category.
Yeah.
And so, but you have these great examples that people can follow your lead.
Yeah. And anybody can see your policies or my policies.
Correct. And I honestly, as you were sitting there thinking, I was like, I was really proud of them because they wrote a really great generic policy that covered like basically anything that's an issue, like you have 12 weeks and you have, like they very much made it very similar to FMLA and it covered all the things. And so we need to go back and revisit what everybody should revisit so every so often, especially in the nonprofit world, but we need to go back and revisit. Things have changed again, even like post-COVID and all the things. So I think that might be a way for people to understand that, you might get the great things in place, but you have to revisit and continue to revisit because things change.
Well, and then, we had a conversation in that most recent meeting, and we'll get there in a second, but with a chamber member who was like, I don't know if I can do that. And it wasn't easy for us because we're a staff of 3, you're right. Yep. And so if I am out for 12 weeks, we had to come up with a plan. Yep. If my bookkeeper or office manager or grants manager is out, what does that look like? And that's not easy. And so it took a couple months to detail what each situation would look like. And I think that gives our board comfort in knowing it doesn't all fall on them, that we have a plan outlined. So, but yeah, let's talk about the meeting. So, where do you want to go? Because the partnership had their movie, they had the movie, we had the focus groups.
I know. Let's talk about the partnership because we haven't mentioned them yet.
Okay.
So, we have a very strong organization in our county with a very rich history of supporting our families and supporting our children birth through 5 and even beyond, really, in a lot of the things that they do. And that's kind of how a lot of this started, was that we were having this conversation and were brought in the partnership, and we were like, how do we look, how does Family Forward, how do we move this idea forward, but also how do we align it with things that the partnership is already doing?
A lot of this started about 8 years ago when our partnership engaged with Kids Ready North Carolina, right? And it was sort of a shift in how partnerships work, looking at increasing parent voice in the decision making, and then also looking at what is happening in our child care system. We know in our community there are lots of child care deserts, like places where there is no child care or there's no child care for infants. There is no child care, period, in Stoneville. Just let that sink in. If you're a Stoneville parent, you have nowhere to take your child for child care. So you have to drive outside of your community to get care or rely on family or other supports. And so really trying to figure out, how do we bring people together in our community to address this? We have solutions and ideas and can be innovative and think through how to support one another. So there's multiple facets to this. There's the lack of child care centers. There's issues around pay. There's issues around sustainability. No child care center is making money in our community. I mean, it is a hard business to run. It is policies at, the state level that do impact what child care centers can do. But there's a lot of things municipalities can do around zoning to have in-home child care centers or help promote child care spaces. So there's a lot of movement and a lot of energy, and I think the meeting that the Economic Development Office for the county hosted brought, I don't know, what, 50, 60 community leaders together?
Yeah, and our board committed that day. Well, it seems like every time
You
the
had a
partnership.
bunch there. You
Well,
had
we
a big
did.
group.
We actually canceled our board meeting to be there because we feel so strongly about the issue, and there are several of us that are part of the coalition. And it just seems like it's so hard in this community sometimes with the repeating meetings to avoid one or the other.
Right.
And it just seems like the last several things have been Reidsville schedule heavy. And so
Yeah.
they've conflicted. And so we've tried to create some things. We hosted a seminar at the Penthouse just so our city officials could hear, see the documentary and hear from the partnership and understand how that looks from a city perspective. Like you said, there's a lot the municipalities can do to support. And then we took a lot of small business owners and a lot of folks from our board, industry leaders, to the meeting so that they could hear and be a part of that space. And we felt like it was really important for them to do so.
You know what we should do next?
Well, please tell me, because I'm excited to hear it.
I think there's a lot of thought in the childhood space and changing policies to where co-ops or one-off childcare rooms. So multiple businesses in one space.
Yes, which we talked
with
about.
A shared hub. So a shared, accountant, a shared recruitment, a shared janitorial staff. So take an old school. You have maybe 20 independent businesses in that. I would love to see the city, the chamber, us, partnership come together to get one of those started in our community.
I think that, I don't think we're far from that, from both that meeting, this chamber space here. There's a constant joke about starting a daycare. At one point, I was fully staffed with people who had at least 2 kids apiece. And it was kind of like the joke, like we needed a daycare but it wasn't really a joke. We had a lot of issues
We constantly have our own child care center in our office, and you can hear kids running back and forth all the time, and we're okay with it. It is part of building an inclusive space where, if your child care falls through or your kid can't go to school for whatever reason, that they are welcomed in our space.
And we have so many issues. It's funny. We have in this office a admin office for one of our local child care centers who have a couple of sites here in Rackham County. And their site is probably I was just thinking when you said that, okay, I live out in the county in the middle of Bethany, kind of on the Bethany Wentworth school district, literally on the Bethany Wentworth school district line on Baker's Crossroad. And I was thinking to myself, had I not had private family care, what would have been the closest center? Either bringing my kid into Reidsville when I came, or they have a center that is right up 704, right inside the limits of Madison, that would have been. But I was just sitting here thinking, and I went through that in our private care situation. My husband's grandfather was diagnosed with cancer, had a very short time span to live, and we went about 13 to 15 weeks with no child care for my infant, and or actually she was a toddler at that point. I'm sorry, I was pregnant with my second. So it was very overwhelming because where do you go when you don't have any other options? And I had to look into several places, and thankfully, and funny, somebody who's a member now with a business is a friend of mine, kept my child a couple days a week. And my mom would leave Annie Penn off a third shift. She would keep her on Monday and then go into work Monday night. And then she would come off of her Thursday night shift and keep her on Friday. Yeah. And my friend kept her the 3 days in between. It was so difficult, to manage that. And so I'm very thankful for, we have been very blessed in our life. But I also feel the pain. I had a friend recently, I spoke about that at the documentary screening at Reidsville. Had a friend who just had a baby. She's got kids that are the same age as my older kids, but then has a baby. She got so lucky, right before the final witching hour, and she was able to get a spot at Woodmont. And she had literally from the time she got pregnant, because she had infertility issues the second time, and so she had gone through with IVF, and as soon as she was pregnant and like past so many weeks, she was like looking, and it took her almost 2 years to find. I mean, it's insane.
It is, and a big part of it is wages.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
making sure people get paid. And I don't want to get into the politics of it, but when you can make more at a coffee shop than you can in a child care role, we have issues, and we have to figure those out. I'm glad that our General Assembly is thinking about that. So they extended funding for, we avoided the child care cliff, so to speak, for another 3 months. So that funding for child care workers is there. But beyond that, what are we going to do? Right? And I know they're working on it and they're thinking about it, but it's not just General Assembly, it is all of us. And
Absolutely.
so it's just something that we are really hoping community will continue to be involved in and bring solutions to the table.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we probably could have done 2 or 3 shows back to back. So, but we are out of time.
Okay.
Is there anything that you want to wrap up or make a point, because we didn't get to it because we just were having such good conversation?
I think a lot of times people don't understand foundations or philanthropy in general. And I'm not a scary person. I hope nobody feels that about me, but anyone is welcome in our office. Our building is 2 doors down from the chamber. We will talk to anyone. Please come in. We will assist you in any way possible. We may not be able to fund every project, but we value the people in our community and the work that they are doing and want to support that the best way we can. So,
yeah, and a lot of times that support comes in other ways. It doesn't have to be financial.
Yeah.
A lot of times it can be connecting people and operating very similarly to the chamber, right? Yeah. Like, and what we do, which is why we make such great partners too. So,
or driving food, or picking up the students, or so many ways that we engage and volunteer in our community. And I think that's the part that a lot of people don't see. Between our staff, there are 25 different coalitions that we are involved in. We don't fund all of them, but we want a seat at the table because we feel like we can leverage, our money, our power, to bring, success. And
Tango and I are on a board together.
Yes.
So yeah,
yes.
I mean.
Oh, and sorry, I need to stop and keep going and not keep going. But there are a couple of really great startup things that are happening in our community. There is the Homelessness Coalition. So agencies are coalescing and begin talking about how do we support unhoused people in our community. We have a food insecurity coalition, so bringing together our farmers, our food banks, our grocery stores. How do we create a better food system for Rockingham County? We have behavioral health work groups from our assessment that have started, really looking at building a strategic plan around behavioral health for our community. And I know there's so many more, but I'm going to... digital inclusion. We just got $300,000 from the state to expand digital access. 27 partners in community. Madison Maid and Parks and Rec is the lead on that, but all across the county we will be implementing digital literacy and giving out digital supplies to folks. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Truly needed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Just tells me that we need to do another show at some point.
Oh gosh.
But you did great. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for being here. As always, we can be found in downtown Reidsville at 140 South Scale Street, on our website at reidsvillechamber.org, and on all of our social media channels. Stay tuned. We'll see you soon.